Next, I'm pleased to be joined by Britt, Republican candidate for U.S. Senate. Katie, thanks for coming on Capitol Journal.
Hey, thank you so much, and congratulations on the anchor chair.
Yeah.
Excited to see you in this position.
It's been a lot of fun. I'm learning a lot. Really eager to talk about this Senate race.
Absolutely.
It's really heating up. A lot of viewers probably have seen your billboards, they've seen your campaign ads, but I was hoping that you could introduce yourself to our viewers in a more personal way and say why that you're running for Senate.
Oh, yes. Thank you. And thanks for the opportunity. So I am born and raised in the state of Alabama. And ironically, I am the only candidate that can say that. I love this state. So we have spent the first few months of the campaign visiting every single county across the state. So all 67 counties, listening to people and getting to know them. And what I have learned is the very values that I grew up with in Coffee County are the very values that everyone across this state holds dear. And that's that the most important things in life are faith, family, and freedom. And so knowing that and knowing that we need to fight for those in DC, my husband and I wish you were here, my husband is a bit of a giant. He's 6'8", 320, so he's hard to miss. He played football at Alabama and then the New England Patriots, and he has graciously quit his job for us to do this. And that's because we both believe there is too much at stake not to. You know, we look at our children, so we have two beautiful children in 6th and 7th grade, and we don't recognize the country. And we believe if good people don't get off the sideline and go fight for the nation we know and love and fight for our state, I want Alabama to be a place my kids want to raise their kids. And you know, we feel like if we don't do that, we're not sure what's going to be left for them. So being a mama and a wife is so important to me. So if I'm not on the campaign trail, I am usually at the volleyball court or taken to basketball or doing something fun like that.
Are there any issues specific to Alabama that you want to address as a senator in Washington?
Oh, absolutely. Well, first, my priorities in DC will be, you know, number one, make sure that we have election security and integrity, pushing back on HR 1 and S1. Sealing and securing our border is of paramount importance. Finish building the wall, put back in Trump's Remain in Mexico policy and public charge. Those things were working, and Biden has come in, and the implications of that have been tremendous for our state. You know, what we are seeing is an increase in human trafficking. We're seeing an increase in drugs. You know, there has been said that it's enough fentanyl coming from China to Mexico across our border that it could kill every single American 4 times over. And we are seeing that firsthand here in Alabama. You know, you continue on balancing our budget is of paramount importance because the debt and deficit that we are creating is putting on the backs of our children and it's going on the backs of their children. So making sure that we balance that budget and rein in spending is so important. But all of these things we must do, and we must also make sure that Alabama has a seat at the table. And that's what I want to do as your next United States Senator. You know, we have the best state. I'm a little biased, but I think we live in a great state with great people, and we have a great story to tell. You know, we have some challenges as a state that we need to hit head on if we ever want to reach our full potential. You know, I am a big believer that no child zip code should determine their opportunity. And so if we are going to make that a reality, we're going to have to be honest about these things, and we're going to have a true partner on the federal level to work with local, state, and federal leaders to hit things head on. And that's stuff like mental health. So we rank 46th in the nation when it comes to access to mental health treatment. You know, and there is no sheriff, no probate judge, no hospital administrator, and really most days no teacher that doesn't tell me that's the #1 issue they deal with every single day. You look at opioid use, and unfortunately for us in our state in 2018, we wrote more prescriptions for opioids than any other state in the nation. So for every 100 people, we wrote 97.5 prescriptions. You know, you look at these things, you look at broadband. We know if we want 21st century jobs and a 21st century economy, we've got to have 21st century infrastructure. Our state legislature has made great strides in these areas, but I want to be a partner to make sure that we meet the needs of children and hardworking Alabamians across the state.
You know the Senate well. You've worked up there before, including being the chief of staff to Senator Shelby when he was chairman of the Appropriations Committee. So some pretty high level stuff. And that probably gives you an advantage in terms of actually serving as a senator. But we're in an election, and that could be a disadvantage in terms of being labeled as an insider on the campaign trail. How do you manage that?
Well, it was an honor to serve our senior senator as chief of staff for 2.5 years. It gave me a front row seat to the challenges and opportunities of this state. Got to work to recruit industry, to create good paying jobs for hardworking Alabamians. I got to learn about the state, everything from our deep water port and the uniqueness of having 5 Class 1 rails right there, and what we can do not just for the area of Mobile, but for this entire state. Looking at the Google data center and coming into Scottsboro and being a part of these conversations, knowing what the military means not only to Alabama, but what Alabama means to military and national defense. Working on projects, both working to bring the F-35 here to Montgomery and working on Redstone Arsenal as we continue to expand, and opportunity for our military and FBI and national security. I have gotten to be a part of a lot of those conversations. I am going to hit the ground running. I'm going to be effective on day one as your next United States Senator. And I am excited to take all of the good things, in research and development that happens here between Hudson Alpha and Southern Research and UAB, among so many other things, and help take those things to the next level so that we can really create opportunity for Alabamians, because ultimately it is about preserving this nation that we know and love and making sure that Alabama has a seat at the table.
The big news this week is that former President Trump has rescinded his endorsement of Mo Brooks in this race and is looking to potentially making a new endorsement. I understand that you recently met with the former president. Are you seeking his endorsement?
Yes, so I had the opportunity to sit down with him. Wesley and I did. It was a great conversation. He and Wesley got to catch up a little bit about the Super Bowl and things like that. And we got to update him on the race. We got to tell him about our grassroots campaign. Todd, nobody is outworking us, and I believe the people of Alabama are worth it. We are getting up every day, and we'll be in Marshall County one day, Baldwin County the next, Sumter County the next, Blount County the next, Jefferson County the next, and that's just 1 week. So we told him about the schedule we're keeping, about how we're working hard to earn the support of Alabamians across this state. We've been talking about the America First agenda. People miss him all across the state, and we had an opportunity to talk about that. Also talk about the record number of people investing in this campaign from Alabama. People want new blood. They want fresh blood. They want someone who will go fight for our values and fight for their people. And that message is resonating, and it was incredible to be able to give that to him, and certainly hope to earn his support as well.
Well, it seems to me Trump might be having an outsized influence, not just in this race, but in Republican politics in general. There was a poll recently showing that really the potency of that Trump endorsement has declined over the last several months. Voters said, 39% said a Trump endorsement makes it more likely they'd support a candidate that has his endorsement. That's down 18 points since August. 42% say it makes no difference. 14% say it makes them less likely to vote for that person. So my question is, are we spending too much time worrying about what the former president of the United States thinks about this race?
No, he is the leader of the party. People miss the president. They know how effective the president was. Look at his policies. Look at the America First agenda. If you just rewind where we were during his presidency and where we are now, everyone knows we are weaker and more vulnerable under Joe Biden. You look at what was happening on the border. We were actually getting movement, sealing and securing that border. You look at holding China accountable and what President Trump did there. You look at his policies across the board. Go to the grocery store, buy a gallon of milk under President Trump, and then buy one under President Biden. And that shows you he had the people of America that he was putting first. The people of Alabama know that. They miss him, and they're eager for those policies and that influence to return.
Let's talk about election fraud. You mentioned that as a top priority in terms of what you would focus on in the Senate. President Trump and certain folks on the right, they've convinced a lot of people out there that the 2020 election was stolen, just outright stolen, illegal votes, all these things. But isn't that dangerous? Isn't that what led to folks storming the Capitol on January 6th?
No, if you look back, election integrity, fraud and abuse has been rampant for years across this nation. You go back to the Baker report in 2005, the Baker Commission report, where they highlighted that. And unfortunately, we have career politicians in D.C. that didn't do anything about it. You look at 2016 and what the Democrats said about it being stolen and Russian interference, or that would have been Hillary's election. You look at 2020. It is clear that we must have free, fair, and secure elections. People have to have faith that their vote counts. You know, I have said from the beginning, we have to get to the bottom of 2020 so that people can have that confidence. If you have this kind of crack in the democracy, which we do, and it goes all the way back, it'll ultimately be what causes this nation to crumble. And I think elections are so important. It's one of the most important things you do, and we need to give people confidence that their vote counts and that the process is fair.
Mm-hmm. Well, I understand that. That's a point well taken. But, you know, a lot of this, these theories about how the election was apparently stolen, which, by the way, I mean, Trump's own attorney general looked into this and said there's nothing there. But a lot of it comes down to these COVID election policies, these changes.
That's right.
We had them here in Alabama, some of them. We extended the primary, if you remember. Mm-hmm. A lot of early voting, mail-in ballots, things like that. States like Pennsylvania, Georgia. But, I remember the election. I remember states like Florida taking the new rules and really taking advantage of them. President Trump, or the Republicans down there, take advantage of mail-in voting. They really own it, and therefore, Trump dominates Florida. The opposite happened in Georgia and Pennsylvania, where Trump said, "Don't vote by mail and don't take advantage of these new rules." So my point is, as much as he's spinning all this election fraud stuff up, doesn't he deserve some of the blame for losses in Georgia and Pennsylvania that lost him the presidency? No.
The people who are to blame are people who actually changed the rules outside the scope of what was legally there. So we saw it happen in a number of areas where, you had people circumvent the legislature to create new rules, and we have to be a nation of laws. And then we saw Nancy Pelosi come in and then try to cement those things. You saw HR 1 and S1 and, kind of make sure that the, kind of do away with voter ID, which I think is incredibly important that we have an ID to vote. I think it's one of the most important things you do, and I think it protects your vote. It would have allowed for ballot harvesting across this nation. It would also take your taxpayer dollars, and there was a time where it was saying that we're going to send them to people that you didn't agree with. Also, redrawing lines from a federal perspective. It was a federal power grab from the liberal left. It is important that our states control these elections and that we make sure that they're free and fair. I am a big believer in voter ID, and I think we need to do everything possible to make sure that everyone has an ID so that they have that, they can exercise their right to vote. I believe it's the least of these. Once you start allowing for ballot harvesting, where people will be going door to door, asking for that ballot and telling them how to check it off, we've got to protect that for each and every person so they have that right and have that right for their voice to be heard.
Let's talk about if you get elected. Say, you're elected senator, you go up there to Washington. I know that Republicans are trying to take back the Senate, but we don't know what that majority is going to look like. We do know that Joe Biden will still be president, at least for another 2 years, and that the Senate will be pretty evenly divided. How will you be able to work with Democrats and the administration given that scenario on big issues like inflation, like the border?
Yeah, I think we have to stand tall and speak directly to the people. So I believe we'll take the House, Republicans will, and the Senate, and we have to balance the budget. You think about what you have to do, what I have to do, what every business across America has to do. We have to balance our budget. The federal government should be held to that same standard. On day one, I am going to introduce a balanced budget amendment, and to that, I'm going to tie that if we don't balance our budget, then nobody should get paid. And I think at that point, people may start to pay attention. But it's things like spending, it's things like creating a conversation around the border about what's happening, as we mentioned earlier, in our state. Whether it's increased crime or human trafficking or drugs that are coming over that border, talking about it in a way that makes it tangible to people so that we can actually get real results. We've also seen what weakness can invite. And I think it's important we kind of sort of look at all of this, that we become energetic energy independent. We're going to have to fight for that tooth and nail. Make sure that way we can drive our gas prices back down, but we know that energy affects the price of everything. So opening up that sector and making sure that America can stand on its own 2 feet, and that we really start to show strength in a number of areas will be a priority, and will be something we'll have to speak directly to the people about and make happen.
Let me ask you about Ukraine. Obviously, there's a war going on there right now. It seems to me that a lot of Republicans and Democrats agree on one thing, and that's that we shouldn't send troops to Ukraine.
Right.
But Republicans also come after that and criticize Biden for not doing enough. They say he's weak. What is he supposed to do? What are we supposed to be doing differently in Ukraine? Is it arms? Is it a no-fly zone? What's Biden supposed to do? Yeah,
not a no-fly zone. I'm with you on your comments here about no boots on the ground. I do think it's important to kind of take a step back and realize how we get here when we're talking about weakness. Obviously, you can make no excuse for Putin's aggression, that he is a thug, he is evil, and there is no excuse for it. You look at Biden, though, and you look at what he did in this country. You know, President Trump had worked so diligently to make us energy independent, to open up these energy sectors. Biden comes in day one and cuts off the Keystone pipeline. He then, gives Putin exactly what he wants with removing sanctions on the Nord Stream 2. Then we have the hack of the Colonial Pipeline, of which Biden responds with, giving him a list of things that he hopes that he didn't touch. That's not real leadership. Then he has an extension of the New START treaty under Obama's terms. That's not good for America. So when you give them the keys in that way, you give Putin everything that he wants, and then you also put us in a weaker position with regards to energy and our dependency, that's not good. Then you look at what happened in Afghanistan, and make no mistake about it, the weakness that we showed in that withdrawal of Afghanistan. I hope we can all agree we wanted our men and women to come home, but we wanted it done the right way. Never did I think I'd see an American president get on bended knee to the Taliban, allowing them to dictate how and why and when we would leave. Leaving Americans behind enemy lines, leaving Christian missionaries behind enemy lines, not keeping our word to our allies. When you do that, you embolden the enemy and you undermine our credibility across the globe. And that is exactly what we are seeing play out today. And make no mistake, an emboldened Russia is an emboldened China, is an emboldened Iran. And we have to have real leadership from the White House. We have to project strength. We saw that. Reagan preached that, peace through strength. Trump practiced that, and that's what we need to get back on good footing.
Well, we're out of time, but I really appreciate you coming on the program. Katie Britt, candidate for United States.
Thank you.